What's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Morella and I am so excited because today I'm going to be doing a major color transformation, taking my model's hair from some chunky highlights in the front along with some pink tape-ins, and we're going to be going more onto the natural coppery side. This video is going to be filled with lots of color correction stuff like filling, some highlights, lowlights, and coloring, and even some tape-ins. And as a matter of fact, there's going to be two parts to this video. So this video right here is all about the color correction that we're going to be doing today. And if you want to check out the hair extension install for the complete makeover that we did, you're going to want to find that video in the description of this video, or you can click here. Now let's get right into this hair makeover and let's get started. As you can see, my model has some really faded hair color along with some chunky pink highlights in the front and also some hair extensions that we added for extra fullness, and now it's time to go ahead and remove them before we do our color correction service. Our overall goal is to get her to a more natural shade so that way we can do a color match service for her hair extensions, and she's going to have a major hair transformation from short to long hair. So first I'm going to be using my Donna Bella tape and bond remover and just spray a few pumps on the surface of the tape and then also on the underside. The reason why I'm doing this is because we just did this tape and install a few weeks ago, so they are pretty fresh. And once you spray the tape, you're just going to wait a few seconds and then gently pull the tape apart and away from the hair. You should see that it feels pretty easy to remove. If it's not, then go ahead and use a little bit more of your bond remover, but you're not going to want to spray all of the tapes and then go through and try to remove them, because then the tape gets a little too tacky. So you want to do this one by one and then just comb through the hair, ensuring that you removed all of the tape from her actual hair itself. Once I have her tapes removed, I'm going to be using Kenra Professional 7CG in Demi Permanent at a 1:2 mixing ratio with its dedicated 9 volume developer. And I'm using this as a fill formula specifically for those blonde pieces that are on the sides. So she is pretty chunky, so right now I just need to replenish the color that was lost during the lifting service. And as you can see, she even has a little bit of spotty hair color as well, so this filler is actually going to help alleviate that banding that we see there, as well as when we go in and do some highlights and lowlights throughout her hair, it'll break that up further as well. But the filler is really necessary anytime we're going 2 levels or more darker, and I decided to use Demi Permanent because it is ammonia free and it's the most gentle color service that I can provide on her hair, especially for these fragile face framing chunky highlights that she's got going on here. Now, the reason why I chose 7CG is because this is a level lighter than our desired end result that we're trying to achieve. So overall goal is that if you are going to color, for example, to a level 5, you want to fill at a level 6 or even a level 7 is totally doable. So for this particular model, since our overall goal is to keep her around a level 5-6, 7CG is the perfect fill shade to go in with. Plus, it has the proper amount of copper and gold, which is the warmth that was removed during the lifting process, and this is actually going to complement that pink shade that she's got going on under there and give me a nice foundation to work with. So I'm just going to finish applying my filler formula on her roots as well as her mids and ends, and then I'm going to process her for a full 20 minutes room temperature and then shampoo and 100% dry her so we have her nice and prepped for the next part of this service. I'm going to be mixing up 2 different formulas. So for my lightener, I'm choosing blue powder lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 20 volume developer, and for the low light formula I am going to be using still Demi Permanent. So I'm mixing up 6 BC at a 1:2 mixing ratio with its dedicated 9 volume developer. So both of these colors are going to help not only break up some of that chunky highlight that we have going on towards the front, but this is also going to add dimension and depth as well as add some more highlights towards the back of her hair. So to get it started, I'm actually just going in with my traditional V-shaped sectioning in the back, and the V-shaped sectioning kind of comes back a little bit past that apex in the back of the head. Now what I am using is a brand new tool from Mar. It's these weaving combs, which I actually personally really loved. This was the first time I actually used them is for this video. But basically what I did was take a really small 1/8 inch section and then use the comb to weave out the pieces. And what you see here now is me applying that demi permanent shade right onto the base. So that's that 6BC that I tapped in. And then now I'm just feathering that right into my lightener. And what this is just going to do is kind of create a dark to light shadow effect. And a lot of people always wonder, well, you know, is it going to create a band? Is it going to make it really warm? At the end of the day, for this particular look, we are going for warm. So I'm not too concerned with controlling warmth. I'm going to actually be enhancing warmth. So I want it to go from dark to light really easily. And then when I get ready to do her final glaze, it's actually going to be really simple because we're just going to add a copper shade on top of all of it. Now, if you were going to be doing a cooler version of this, I probably would not utilize this technique. This technique specifically works best when you're doing warmer shades, and it just kind of kills two birds with one stone when trying to create a dark to light and diffused highlight effect. So overall, my sectioning, as you can see, is just the outline of the V section, creating a nice veil for those highlights towards the back. And then I'm going to finish off with a traditional mohawk section going all the way towards the front of the hair. So all of my subsections are about a 1/2 inch wide. And then for the weaving itself, I just take an 1/8 inch section using the weaving comb, and that automatically separates it for me using the comb and my fingers. And I just simply insert the foil and apply my root shade into that lightener. These combs are actually quite fun to use. They come in 3 different sizes, and if you want to snag a pair of yours up, you can head to the link in the description of this video. I actually like using these from Mar weaving combs, and they also make these with vellum as well, and that link is in the description as well. They're very, very similar, but at the end of the day, they just create different types of weaves for you, and they're actually quite fun to use, and I do think that they are time saving, especially when you're doing a back-to-back baby light. I can definitely see how this type of tool can be really, really useful. So once I get the top completely done, I'm going to work on the sides, and I'm actually going to do a little bit of a different application for the sides because that's where those chunky highlights used to be. And I'm also going to be totally honest here, for this top section, I ended up going back and adding in another highlight, which you'll see after we're done with the sides. I originally wanted to keep the depth here around the hairline, but after chatting with her a little longer, we decided we wanted to have something slightly more bolder towards the frame of her face, and something to also kind of melt and complete into those sides. I decided to go in with diagonal sections along the face frame. So what you can see here is a 1/4 inch subsection, and I'm taking my base formula and just tapping it right into that root. So kind of think of this first section as a color melt, if you will. So I'm just tapping in that 6BC right onto the root, and then taking my Mar comb and actually just kind of combing it through and creating a melt. For that next section, I'm going to create a low light. So this is what's going to help further break up these chunky highlights here. So instead of adding more lightener onto these, I'm actually going to make these really dark, because overall this hair on the side, it still looks pretty copper. So that color melt that we just created on that front hairline, that's what's going to look like the highlight. And then I'm adding in more of the low light, so pulling that 6BC all the way through into these foils. And I'm going to continue on with this pattern until all of these chunky highlights are inside of a foil. And the more uneven you create your weave right here, the better, because that's what's going to make it look more of a natural effect. So everything that's left outside of those foils, it's going to get a root tap, if you will, or a root melt. So I'm just tapping that darker color in and then just leaving them out because they actually look really, really pretty. Just a little added trick that I like to do when I'm doing a melt like this is using my hands to help diffuse. It just comes out really, really pretty. And once I get these sides completely done, like I said, I went back towards the front just to add another little baby light right on the hairline, which really wasn't a bad thing because usually the hair is a little bit more fragile around the hairline. So doing that last was actually probably the best thing anyways. So once her foils were completely applied, I mixed up a fresh new batch of that 6BC at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 vol, and I applied it to everything in between the foils from roots to ends, with the exception of where those chunky highlights that we left out on the sides were. But everything else we applied color to. So now you know why putting that color that we put onto the roots on the foils, it kind of didn't even matter as far as like bleeding or anything like that, because I was going to go ahead and put color in between anyways. So this is just a really quick and easy technique to make a total transformation and do everything at the same time instead of doing separate services, and still have that rooted look and effect that everyone's really loving still. So overall, this is a color correction, but I like to simplify the color correction process as much as possible by creating simple applications and simple formulas. And I only processed this for about 20 minutes total, and then took her to the bowl and shampooed her out and got her ready for her final toner, which we decided to use 8C and demi permanent at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer. I did this toner right at the bowl, but before we got started, I used porosity equalizing spray. So this is literally going to even out the porosity of her hair before we do any toning service. And how it works is that it's slightly acidic on the pH scale, helping close down that cuticle in areas where there's high porosity. And then I just applied my 8C and left it on right at the bowl for about 15 minutes. And did a final shampoo and condition and did her final style. And here's the final result of my hair color correction transformation. And just to give you a little recap on the color process, I filled her hair for those chunks with 7CG in demi permanent, and then I added in some lowlights along with some highlights using blue powder lightener at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 20 volume developer. And then for those lowlights, I decided to use 6C at a 1:2 mixing ratio with 9 volume developer. And then I just let her process and then did a final glaze using 8C. So I really hope you liked this hair tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe. And be sure to check out my other hair tutorials right here on this channel. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all under Mirella Manelli. And if you want education right to your inbox, be sure to subscribe to my email list. You can subscribe right onto morellamanelli.com. And then finally, if you like listening to podcasts, be sure to check out my podcast called Hair B&B. It's a podcast all about hair, beauty, and business. And make sure to check out the part 2 to this hair transformation. I'm gonna do a whole entire separate video on her tape-in install using some wavy tape-in extensions from Donna Bella Hair. And I'm super excited because we're gonna be color matching her today and then bringing her in next week and custom coloring them so it can match her hair color perfectly. Oh yeah, and comment down below what your favorite part of this entire tutorial was, and I'll be sure to respond. And I will see you next time.